we got to talk to our guest tonight, Stephen Kent from the Consumer Choice Center. I think you've set the record now for number of different titles you've come on this show as over the years.
I'm a man of Washington, D.C., always on the move.
You contain multitudes.
But there's always a through line of consistency. I love freedom.
So that's what, so Consumer Choice Center, real quick, just so people know, what does the Consumer Choice Center do?
International consumer advocacy group focused on consumer issues in North America, Europe, and Asia. Okay,
so let's talk Amazon, because we have seen people complain about, people love Amazon, no doubt about it. You can buy things, have it to your house in a day, maybe in a couple of hours. But much like other companies that have gotten very big, it reminds me of a lot of people, the backlash against places like Walmart through the years. People think it's gotten too big. The FTC wants to address that now?
Yes, they certainly do. So there is a rancorous debate going on in the world of regulatory agencies about whether or not Amazon constitutes a monopoly and whether or not it's in violation of antitrust law. And so Biden's FTC, led by Lina Khan, wants to use the agency to break apart Amazon. So that means, think about all the different things that Amazon does. There's the logistics side, the deliveries, the warehouse, there's the online marketplace, the advertising agencies, all that stuff rolled into one. And it's so efficient because it's all under one umbrella that you get these just incredibly low prices, really quick delivery times, and an immense amount of value for your monthly subscription. But there are people who think that that's not good for society, that we're spoiled, that we're getting things that we shouldn't get so cheap. And that's more or less the FTC's argument. Not that there is a competitive threat here or that consumers are harmed, but that this is not the kind of culture that we want.
So they are coming together. There's going to be some sort of meeting between Amazon and the FTC coming up soon?
Yes, they are meeting here this week. It's probably just a formality, sort of a last chance to undo their own business model that has made them so successful and gotten 128 million Americans enrolled in their subscription model. They're not going to do it, and then they will eventually launch the suit here in the coming weeks.
How much do you think, when you look at Jeff Bezos, for example, and here's a guy who, in addition to owning Amazon, owns the Washington Post, has his hands in many other endeavors, flying people into space, that sort of thing. When you look at somebody like him, do you think that some of the backlash against Amazon is because it's against a billionaire like Jeff Bezos, much like you see people looking at somebody like Elon Musk, who is more outspoken than Jeff Bezos is, but in a society sometimes where you see billionaires as these all-encompassing forces for evil, for lack of a better term?
That is certainly the kind of mentality that drives Lina Khan at the FTC. She's 34 years old, fresh out of Yale. She is very much a Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren type Democrat in this position. I don't want to say that she's a socialist per se, but that's definitely where she comes from ideologically. And so she sees Amazon as an extension of that, billionaires rule the world threat. But the problem is that you and I and everybody watching who has an Amazon Prime subscription is better off using the services. We get things for cheaper. We get them faster. We save time and money in abundance. That's really hard to look away from.
Is it fair, though, using that comparison, because obviously they bought Whole Foods years ago. They've also rolled out their own grocery stores. There's a couple down the road here in Bethesda, not too far away. I've been to that Amazon grocery store many times, but I know that, as a member, why do I have to pay? It's not like I'm going to Sam's Club. It's not like I'm going to Costco. Why should I have to pay to get discounts on things that somebody else, it replaced a giant grocery store. There are a lot of people who don't have Amazon, so why should there be that two-tiered system? Or is that a matter of choice?
It's a matter of choice. Why should the items that you're getting in the store at Whole Foods be artificially more expensive? There's a really interesting article, I believe it was in The Atlantic, about Lina Khan, and it describes a story in which she goes to a Whole Foods after the Amazon purchase, and she scoffs at the low price of the avocados that were like $1.50 and they used to be $2.50, and she looks at that and scowls, and the journalist writes that in there. I mean, how is that in the interest of everyday Americans? That's what the FTC is supposed to do. They're supposed to enforce consumer advocacy positions and what's good for us.
Just about out of time, but I just want to draw a parallel here because you mentioned FTC, you mentioned Lina Khan. They try to do something similar where they block this Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger.
What a mess.
A massive like $60 billion merger here. Very adamant about stopping that. It did not happen. It's going to move through here. So is she learning the hard way on the job that this is not how you enforce regulatory reform?
No, this is all part of the plan. So
Wow.
It's all part of the plan.
The plan.
Losing your way towards legislative reform on antitrust.
Okay.
So Lina Khan's approach is to take as many cases to court at taxpayer expense as possible with these big tech companies. And she knows, and their lawyers know, that antitrust law does not conform with their view of how it should be. And so they're going to lose in court, and it's going to nudge Congress, they hope, and Democrats and Republicans to come together to change antitrust law to be broader than consumer harm being done.
If anybody wants to read more about what Stephen and his colleagues at the Consumer Choice Center have to say about this, we'll tweet out a link to an op-ed you all wrote. Stephen, thanks for coming in. Again, my friend, great to see you again.
Thank you.
And the Final Five is back right after this.